to see a lot of young people want to get involved, seeing more than 62,000 kids on their college and high school campuses put in requests to start chapters, that is so inspiring. That is so motivational. And the feeling in my heart, I mean, I'm just so overwhelmed by the amount of people who want to get involved. I mean, just this past week, we saw, at Colorado State University, Charlie was supposed to have an event there on campus, but it turned into a vigil of 10,000 people coming out to show their support. We can expect to keep seeing these kinds of things. I mean, you see outside of Turning Point USA headquarters, people are showing their unwavering support and love and appreciation for everything that we do. And that just goes to show that we can't stop. And kids all across the country need to keep pushing that message. Clearly, they're feeling something. We are so overwhelmed and so grateful to see such a movement like this just continue on.
All right, guys, good Tuesday to you. A lot going on in the world. We're continuing to mourn the tragedy of Charlie Kirk. We got the Turning Point USA spokesperson or correspondent in Washington, D.C. at the White House, Monica Paige. She's been with us before. She's going to join us to give us an update on them moving forward because they actually had a great event last night. Michael Knowles kicking it back out on campus. And then Kamala's got a brand new book out. One of her former aides is actually going to join us to have a discussion about her book. Trump was at the UN today. Kicked it off in a funny moment. He literally tried to get on the escalator. The escalator didn't work. Starts to give his speech. The teleprompter didn't. Take a look. This is how he remarked. Take a look.
And I don't mind making this speech without a teleprompter because the teleprompter is not working. I feel very happy to be up here with you nevertheless. And that way you speak more from the heart. I can only say that whoever's operating this teleprompter is in big trouble.
Now, keep in mind, that was after the escalator to get him there was out, but he made light of both things. Take a listen to how he reacted and what the UN has done these days.
These are the two things I got from the United Nations, a bad escalator and a bad teleprompter. Thank you very much.
He went on to talk about all the stuff that he has done to stop wars and whatever, and how the UN is basically useless and hasn't done anything to aid in that. And the only thing that he's gotten is a broken escalator and a broken teleprompter. He railed against a lot of stuff today. We'll continue to break that down this week, but he was on fire at the UN. But two other big things happening today. One, the left is cheering the return of Jimmy Kimmel. Now, I want to make a point here because I think this is the important thing. Erica Kirk showed us the power of forgiveness. Jimmy Kimmel spread dangerous information. He claimed that Charlie Kirk's assassin was one of MAGA's own. That's a lie. It's demonstrably false. He knew it. We all knew that at the time. And he let it hang out there. And then they lied and said that he got pulled off because they knew somehow that it was directly a result of the FCC chairman's comments. These guys are on the public airways. This isn't cable. This is ABC. So here's the thing. What we do know is that Sinclair and Nexstar, the people who own a bunch of the affiliates, said, no way, we're not airing this. He offended all these people, not going to have it. They decided to bring him back. Sinclair is still not going to show it. So there's about 20-something markets that are not going to see it tonight. But let's just be clear. Jimmy Kimmel has a ton of outlets, Twitter, PR teams, I'm sure. He has said nothing. I'm sorry, I misspoke. Even the weasel way to do that, didn't even try. Nothing. It'll be interesting. I know everyone's like, oh, well, let's see how he does tonight. What has been wrong with the last 5 days? He couldn't have said, hey, that was my bad. I went too far, whatever. But let's just be clear. All the left cheering of it, he has not said that he denounces what he said or what he said was wrong or a lie. And the left, Chuck Schumer and others, are all about what he said. So just keep in mind what they're all about. By the way, the president canceling a meeting with Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries for later this week to talk about the government shutdown. That's the right move. Don't sit down with these guys. We should pass a clean continuing resolution. It's unbelievable. Oh, let me go back one thing. I just will tell this. I think there should be a boycott of anyone who advertises on Kimmel tonight. You know what? Why? If you want to stand there, the guy hasn't apologized. Why are you paying for ads until you know what he's going to say? So everyone who advertises tonight, you are complicit. I'm just telling you. That's the reality. And then Trump or last night, I mean, the Turning Point USA guys kicked it back off in Minnesota. Michael Knowles crushing it. So proud to see him back out there. They announced this amazing lineup Megyn Kelly, Glenn Youngkin, Tucker Carlson, all these guys are going to go start taking up the dates that Charlie had. Amazing what they're doing. And I think, again, they're going to come out bigger and stronger. I mentioned John Solomon was supposed to be with us today. He had a scheduling issue. He's going to be back with us next week. Don't worry. We got that tomorrow. Harmeet Dillon will be on. We'll have a lot to talk about with her. Man, do we ever have a lot to talk about with Harmeet Dillon. But as I said, two great conversations coming your way. Monica Paige, the Turning Point USA White House correspondent, is going to join us about what they're dealing with. And then we're going to talk to a guy named Mike Nellis about Kamala's book, because that's out today. And so far, it ain't gone well. She did an interview on The View. She did an interview on Good Morning America. And then last night on Maddow. And she is doing everything to make a fool of herself. Her former senior advisor is going to join us. So I'll be nice, but I'm just saying I want to break this down. Before we get to Monica, though, you guys, I'm telling you, I like to buy things that are going to last. Clothes, shoes, things like that. I switched out my sheets because sleep is so valuable. You guys have heard me talk about this. And I now have a pair of Boll Branch sheets. Oh my gosh. It's like if you've ever stayed in a really nice hotel, now you've got that in your bed. It is unbelievable. They feel amazing. And they make you sleep better. So well that after the first night, my wife said, can we use your code to buy a second pair? So I literally went out my own money and bought a second pair of the Boll Branch sheets. So I never had to worry about whether or not we were putting them in the wash, and we could always have a pair ready to go. It is unbelievable. They're made with the finest 100% organic cotton in a soft, breathable, and I get hot. I'm just maybe TMI here, but I do get hot. It is unbelievable. And they have a 30-night worry-free guarantee. If you don't like them, which I don't know why you wouldn't, you can literally. And it is just the cotton, the breathability. I love these things. It is literally like the nicest resort you've ever stayed at. This is what you want. You can make a difference. Go to bollandbranch.com/Spicer. You have to use that URL. So it's Boll, BOLLAND, branch.com/Spicer. You get 15% and free shipping. bollandbranch.com/Spicer. So you have to use it exactly like that to unlock 15% off and free shipping. Check it out. I'm telling you, you're going to love these things. You'll probably be just like me and get a second pair. All right. That's the first thing. And then I got to tell you, we've talked a lot about people and organizations and things that have happened over the last week. The impact that Turning Point has had, unbelievable, unquestionable. But another great organization are the folks at Concerned Women for America. They've been out there on the front lines of the cultural wars that we are fighting all the time. So I love what they're doing. Their leader, Penny Nance, you've seen her before. She's amazing. They fight 7 key issues: family, sanctity of life, religious liberty, parental choice and education, fighting sexual exploitation, national sovereignty, and support for Israel. Penny Nance and the women at Concerned Women for America were on the forefront of keeping men out of women's sports before it was cool. These guys have chapters all over the country, and I'm asking you right now for a donation of $20 or more. Not only can you help them, their work and the chapters grow, but you get a free copy of Penny's brand new book, A Woman's Guide, 7 Rules for Success in Business and Life. Just go to concernedwomen.org/Sean, SEAN, concernedwomen.org/Sean for your copy of the book and to be helping this great organization. Without further ado, I want to bring in Monica Paige, the White House correspondent for Turning Point USA. Monica, good to see you again. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much, Sean. I really appreciate it.
A lot to break down with you because you've been everywhere. You were in Arizona. You were in the new media seat yesterday. Let's start with Arizona. Just bring us inside the room. I watched it. I couldn't believe how, I've never been more captivated by anything for that long in my life. What was the feeling inside the room?
Oh, it was absolutely astonishing to see the amount of people packed inside that stadium. It was unlike anything I had ever seen before. And you not only had nearly 100,000 people in that stadium, but you also had the overflow stadium, Desert Diamond, that was also pretty much at max capacity. You've had other viewing parties. You've had tens of millions of people tuning in remotely from home. That just goes to show the magnitude and the effect that Charlie had on the American people. And also, Sean, I want to share with you, it was an honor to ride on Air Force One to the memorial service. President Trump wanted Turning Point USA Frontlines there on the flight with him. So that was an even more special opportunity. And it just felt like this wouldn't have happened. I wouldn't have had these opportunities, not only on Air Force One, or just opportunities in general, thanks to Turning Point USA and thanks to Charlie. So it was a very emotional day. It's been a very emotional 13 days. And, the only way that we can keep pushing forward is to literally keep working twice as hard and just keep the momentum going.
Yeah. Yesterday, you went from all that into the new media seat. What do you feel like anybody like that? We keep using the word revival, and I watched a video last night of a woman in Massachusetts, and she was like, look at this line. And again, it's a video, and I was like, okay. And she's like, this is church. She's like, I've never in my life seen a line of people going to church where I live. And she's like, something's happening. I get the sense that when that word was used over and over again in a service, revival, that it wasn't just a word to be thrown out there over and over again, that there is truly a new movement at hand.
It's unlike anything that I've ever seen before in our country. I mean, people are going to church in droves now. People are opening Bibles. They're buying Bibles. They want to feel more connected now more than ever, which is truly something special. And it's even more special to be part of an organization that's been encouraging this. And now it gives me a lot of faith. It gives me a lot of hope to see more and more people hopping on board with our message. And it doesn't have to be anything this grandiose. It could just be as simple as saying a prayer every single day. And to see people in droves really fulfilling the message that Charlie has been proclaiming over the last, 10, 15 years now at this point. It's really a movement that I really don't see going away. And this is how you fight evil, is that you keep doing good. And what's interesting is that people have been so, they don't want to change. They don't want to change their minds. They don't want to change their hearts. But Charlie allowed people to seek change. It is okay to maybe change your mind about something that maybe you were on the fence about. It's okay to change your heart. It's okay to maybe say, okay, maybe, being pro-choice isn't a good thing for me. Maybe, Charlie has a point here. It's okay to put your pride aside and really see in your heart that, you can change your mind. It's okay to do that. And Charlie allowed for that dialogue and conversation to happen. And we're seeing that right now with this revival, like you're describing.
What's next for Turning Point? Last night, I mentioned earlier, big first step, Michael Knowles doing this big event. Have you guys gotten any guidance as to what this means, or is it still coming together?
It's still kind of coming together, but what we saw last night with Michael Knowles is definitely what we can expect moving forward. We've got Megyn Kelly on deck as well, Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin. He's also going to be joining her, and we have a great stacked lineup in the coming month and a half. So, I mean, we're still going to keep pushing forward. We're still going to keep moving. We're still going to keep, having these dialogues, having these discussions, having these debates. It's important, and Charlie proved its importance. So the only thing we can keep doing is to just keep doing this, because when we stop, this is exactly what happens. It's violence, and it's okay to have these discussions. We should be. What kind of world would we be living in if we agreed with everybody? So I'm really glad that we are continuing this fight 10 times harder, because this is exactly what Charlie would have wanted.
There's this sense that people felt like, who's going to be the next Charlie Kirk? And the way that I have sort of looked at it, and I want your take on this, is I don't think it's going to be Charlie Kirk. Yes, Erica Kirk may be the new CEO, but Monica Paige may go do these 5 things, and so may do these 10. And I saw a young man who's 12 years old saying, I'm going to start a chapter in my community. And I think there's like 10,000 Charlie Kirks, and each one may, if you think of it as a scale of 1 to 10, and Charlie was a 10, one might be a 3, one might be a 7, 2 might be 9s. But I think it's spawning a movement of a bunch of people doing a bunch of different things, not one guy leading an entire effort. Fair?
Absolutely fair, because there's nobody that can ever replace Charlie. Like you said, I mean, you could have Erica, who's our new CEO, and she's fantastic, and she is literally the pillar of strength. We saw that on display at the memorial, and we saw her in her address to the nation less than 48 hours after her husband's tragic death. I mean, there's something to be said about that. But I mean, to see a lot of young people want to get involved, seeing more than 62,000 kids on their college and high school campuses put in requests to start chapters, that is so inspiring. That is so motivational. And the feeling in my heart, I mean, I'm just so overwhelmed by the amount of people who want to get involved. I mean, just this past week, we saw, at Colorado State University, Charlie was supposed to have an event there on campus, but it turned into a vigil of 10,000 people coming out to show their support. We can expect to keep seeing these kinds of things. I mean, you see outside of Turning Point USA headquarters, people are showing their unwavering support and love and appreciation for everything that we do. And that just goes to show that we can't stop. And kids all across the country need to keep pushing that message. Clearly, they're feeling something. We are so overwhelmed and so grateful to see such a movement like this just continue on.
It's in contrast, though, to the left. Like, one of the things you mentioned, these vigils, these tributes, they're peaceful, they're prayerful. And yet the left, when they have a problem, they loot, they commit vandalism, violence. And yet we're still told that both sides are, have issues. And I keep fighting this narrative. It's not the same on both sides, is it?
No, it's absolutely not. And this just proved it just this past week. I don't see anybody on the left doing what Charlie did. I don't see anybody on the left looking to do what Charlie did. And to see these people on the left that are still doing this whataboutism, let's just put the whataboutism aside. It just doesn't make any logical sense, because you see how we handle such a great loss in our community and in our lives. Where I spoke to people on the ground here in Washington, D.C. I did an MOS for Frontlines. And these people feel like they lost a child, like they lost somebody truly special to them in their hearts. And what we can keep doing is we have to keep praying for our enemy. We have to keep praying to keep this movement going. And on the left, you see them crying about the First Amendment with this Jimmy Kimmel drama, that's a whole other beast. I hate even talking about Jimmy Kimmel. But it just goes to show the irony and just the hypocrisy of it all. Charlie touched the hearts and the minds of college students, and that's not an easy thing to do. Yeah. And I'm still waiting for somebody on the left to, try to do something that Charlie did. You just can't, because Charlie showed that he has not only facts and reason on his side, but also has God.
Yeah. You represent Turning Point in the White House press pool. Do you think, did any of those guys get it? Did they react? Is that touched anyone there, do you think?
It's so interesting, Sean, because I had a couple of reporters come up to me and offer their condolences, which was nice. But it just feels really weird to be sitting in like the press pool and just hearing questions that just, I don't know. I think it was in the Oval Office the other day. A reporter for either MSNBC or CNN asked President Trump, why did you put the flag at half-staff for just Charlie Kirk? Why couldn't you have done it for this congresswoman or this senator who got killed in Minnesota? And the president's like, well, if only the representative called me and told me that this had happened, maybe I would have done it. And it's just the left does this whataboutism, and the reporters do it too. Right. Tim Walz is who I'm trying to describe. If Tim Walz had just called President Trump and told him about what had happened, then maybe the president would have done it. But this is the kind of attitude that we get in the press pool. These are what the mainstream media reporters are focused on. It's always about, oh, well, you did this, but what about this? And it's just so disingenuous. And I really try my best to stay away from reporters like that and just people there at the White House that are like that, because it's just negativity. And all I want to focus on are people that are truly, I don't know, because Charlie was such a big influence, not only for people on the right, but people on the left as well. And to have those debates and discussions. And I don't know, it just doesn't sit right with me in my heart to be at that White House when there are reporters out there who couldn't give less of a crap about what had happened.
Well, I hate to go there, but I do want to ask you about Kimmel, because he's going to come back on the air tonight.
Yeah.
And I just got to say this, because this is what I said earlier. This is what outrages me. Erica Kirk showed that she's probably the most forgiving person that I've ever met in my life, and probably ever will. Jimmy Kimmel hasn't asked for forgiveness. He lied. And that's what people have to, it's not that he was telling a bad joke. He lied. And he has been sitting there for 6 or 7 days now and hasn't said a word, hasn't said, I was wrong, I need to apologize. And he has a million outlets. He's got a PR team. He's got X and Twitter and YouTube and whatever. And I feel like all the left is celebrating him coming back about the First Amendment, and yet no one is focusing on the fact that he lied to the American people and tried to actually instigate, people to believe something very badly about our movement.
It's a shame. And What I will say about Jimmy Kimmel is that he's been suffering with this kind of mental illness for decades now. And unfortunately, a soul like his cannot be changed. A mind like his cannot be changed, no matter, how many facts you put in front of him. And to see him not retract his statement within moments of spewing such hatred, it's very telling. And, people make mistakes. I get it. Maybe there's some misspeak, nobody's perfect. Sometimes you got to retract. It happens. It happens to the best of us. But the fact that he didn't retract, he didn't apologize, it's spitting in the face of so many people, even those on the left who maybe said, hey, listen, Charlie wasn't that bad of a guy. Charlie was a more moderate right kind of person. And the fact that you're going to lie about his death and try to convince the American people that what we saw wasn't real, he's part of the problem. You have people on the left like Jimmy Kimmel who are part of the problem. And it's sad because there are so many people that are standing by him. That's what's scary here. Not only the fact that Jimmy Kimmel's spreading lies on national television, but there are people out there that agree with him and continue to perpetuate these lies. So we have a problem on our hands, I think. You still have people that are spreading these hate comments and still protesting our events, of course. Freedom of speech, that's fine. But there comes a point where when you just outright lie and you don't retract, you've got a massive credibility problem. And I think Jimmy Kimmel's future is not going to look so bright anymore, because how do you come back from something like that? You blatantly lie, even though the facts are right in front of you about Charlie Kirk's killer, and you're still going to continue on forward. How do you come back from that, Sean?
Well, we're going to try to find out tonight. Everyone keeps saying, let's see what he says. And I'm like, he's had an opportunity. He's chosen not to. That's the key thing. Monica, I really appreciate you stopping by and sharing your thoughts with us. Our continued condolences to you and the whole TPUSA team. But I'll tell you, I'm so impressed with how you guys have handled yourselves and the fortitude, faith, courage, determination. It's amazing. And I think history is going to look back unbelievably favorably on how this movement is such an example for people to deal with tragedy in the way that you have. So thank you for being with us, especially as you guys continue to mourn.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sean. And I will say that our productions team, our events staff, the entire Turning Point USA team, really putting together that beautiful memorial in less than a week. It's inspiring and just makes me really proud to be part of this organization. So thank you so much for your condolences and your support. It really means a lot to us, and we're very excited to keep moving forward.
Yeah, you should be very proud of them. Monica, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Great conversation with Monica. Now I want to bring in Mike Nellis, who is a senior advisor to Kamala. Before I do that, though, guys, I'm telling you, you guys hear the same advice over and over again. Eat slower, walk after meals, avoid the processed food. I've tried all that stuff. I am trying. I trust you. But I got to be honest with you. When I discovered this, the Cowboy Colostrum, it was unbelievable. It is like they call it liquid gold for a reason, because it's the first milk that babies get packed with proteins, growth factors, peptides. It supports immunity, reduces inflammation, and helps you heal your gut lining. This is literally, by the way, they've got vanilla, chocolate, strawberry. The flavors are amazing. It's made from the highest quality bovine colostrum in the U.S., sourced from the first milking of 100% grass-fed American cows. For a limited time, our listeners can get 25% off their entire order. Just head to Cowboy Colostrum, COLOSTRUM.com/Sean and use code Sean. So cowboycolostrum.com/Sean and code word Sean for 25% off your first purchase. Oh my gosh. And make sure you tell them you heard it on the Sean Spicer Show. All right. Without further ado, I want to bring in the former senior advisor to Kamala Harris on her book launch day, Mike Nellis. Mike, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Sean.
All right, so I just want to make sure I did you justice. You were a senior advisor to Kamala Harris.
Yes, yeah, on her first presidential campaign and before then.
Okay, and you are still a hardcore card-carrying Democrat.
Yes, I am. Despite all evidence to the contrary, I am a card-carrying hardcore Democrat.
No, I just want to make sure that everyone understands that like your credentials are solid. Like and it's funny. I asked Dan Turrentine, my colleague, on the morning meeting, and he spoke very highly of you. So I just want the audience to understand that this isn't some, disgruntled former Democrat. Like you are still, you're just providing solid analysis of what you think. I've written 4 books, and I remember my first book, there was this desire to say, not desire, like the publishers were like, we need you to say this, we need you to say this. And I'll be honest with you. It was all like this, sliding scale. If you can say more of this, we can probably get you more of an advance. If you don't, it's harder. And I made a decision. There's actually a New York Times story that says Spicer left all this money on the table because I chose not to go tell stories and go after people. That's not what I wanted to do. That's not who I am. I don't get what she thought she was doing with this book. Do you have a sense of like, because there's a lot of people who are trying to say, did she take the advance? Was it about the money? Was it about trying to settle scores? Was it about reinventing herself politically? I can't figure it out. Can you?
Yeah. So my view of this is that given the experience she's been through, given the name that she has, she could have found a good ghostwriter. She could have written a very boring, basic politician book, made a bunch of money on the advance, and not said anything interesting. Most of these politician books, I have a bunch of them back here. They're just there. They're like a stretched out version of their stump speech, and they're not interesting at all. So I actually give her a lot of credit for saying something interesting. And to me, whether I agree with what's in there or not, we have not, as Democrats, had tough conversations about what's been happening in the party, the directions that we've been taking it, particularly on Joe Biden and his health, which I think was a mistake. And so I'll give Kamala a lot of credit because she's forcing a lot of tough conversations publicly and privately about the mistakes that we made over the last couple of years. And she didn't have to do that. She could have made a ton of money. She could have written something that people would have loved, but she's taken a risk. And I think there's more credit to that in an age where every politician is overly canned and prepared and never says anything interesting.
Okay, fair enough. I guess the question I have, though, is I actually would have given her credit if she said, listen, I was the vice president. I was chosen to be on this ticket because of him. I made some concerns of mine known to him privately, but that's not my role. And I would have given her credit for that, because for all these people to say you should have just done this, she's the number two. She's the Robin to Batman. That's right. The role of the vice president. And I actually will say that I don't think it's fair to say she should have done all this. Like if I were Joe Biden, I would have said, thank you very much. Next. Like, you're out. So, but she didn't even do that. Like, it's like she wrote the book and she kind of is trying to have it both ways, saying like, I was a little bit critical, but then I wasn't.
Yeah, I think, well, let's keep in mind the vice presidency is the worst job in American politics, like by far.
I don't know, dude. Have you seen the House?
It's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. DNC chair is a pretty bad job too.
Yeah, and the DNC chair or the RNC chair, you don't get a house with a pool, with a Secret Service. I'll be honest with you, Mike, I'm a big fan of the vice presidency. I think you get all the cool stuff. You don't have to worry about getting the 3 a.m. phone calls. You don't have people traipsing through your house. I'm a big fan of the VP.
I think you get saddled with all the baggage, though. So like with Kamala, she's not responsible for what happened with Joe Biden. Based on all the reporting we know, they tightened his inner circle to so few people that even the vice president didn't know the full extent of what was going on. Now, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I think Joe Biden was all there mentally, but he was tired. I sort of accept that explanation. It feels consistent with what I've heard and seen. But I think we all could have done a better job of speaking out. We should have had this conversation in 2023, had a full nominating process, and then Kamala either would have won that process and been a better candidate with a better campaign for it, or somebody else would have risen like what happened in 2007, 2008 with Barack Obama. And that's the original sin. Like Jake Tapper named that correctly, in my opinion.
Well, let's be honest. Jake Tapper was part of the problem. So, I mean, he didn't ask any of the questions he could have at the time, and the media didn't. So, I mean, I know Jake Tapper's done a great job of profiting off of this, but at the time when people were seeing it, to your point, the physical nature of Biden's decline, at the very least, they didn't ask any tough questions. They literally.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No. I feel like for these guys in the media in particular to be critical, it's like, dude, you were there. You didn't do anything. You never asked a question. And if you're getting shouted down by Corinne Jean-Pierre, that says a lot.
Yeah, well, but we're watching the same problem play out right now because Donald Trump is also, I think, diminished relative to his peak. And maybe it's not as evident as it was with Joe because Joe was a lot more tired seeming and Trump is a lot more bombastic. I think we're going through the same thing. They're not asking the tough questions. Most of the time when he does these long press conferences, he can't remember the names of the people that he's talking about. He had that physical fitness one that he did with Triple H and a bunch of others, and Triple H was standing right here and he could not find Triple H. He didn't know who he was or what he was, and they covered for him. And so there's a lot of moments like that where
I got to be honest with you. I think there's a big difference. I mean, Trump is up at 6 a.m. He's going till midnight. He's coming in and out of meetings. I honestly don't think, everyone gets older. That's a fact, right? I mean, I'm 54 years old. I'm not the guy I was at 40, but I think there's a big difference between the cognitive and physical decline of Biden and Trump just actually physically getting older.
I think we're watching a very similar thing play out here, unfortunately, which is Trump may all be there, but I think they're also selling a narrative that's going to become more readily apparent over time. And regardless of this, Donald Trump is the oldest person ever elected president of the United States. And to me, he's very disconnected from the day-to-day lives of most Americans, which is why he goes out and says that grocery prices are down. He's saying that everything's so cheap. The job market is so hot. And anybody who's trying to get a job or balancing a checkbook right now could tell you that's not the case. So to me, we've had back-to-back presidents who I think were, look, they have their own pros, they have their own cons. We can argue about them all day, but they're really out of touch with the average American. And we could have done, I think both parties are ready for a reset in the primaries that are coming up in a year and a half.
Well, look, I think that all presidents to some degree are disconnected because when you live in that bubble, you don't actually get to go see and do things. And Donald Trump is a billionaire, so by the very nature, but I will say he interacts with a lot more people than most presidents by just the nature of the interactions that he has. I do want to get back to this book because it's out today. Let's just start with the interviews that she's had. She did Maddow, The View, and GMA. Do you think I watched some of the clips from both. I admittedly have not seen the whole thing because it's just not my thing. But I feel like she said a lot of stuff in the book. And then when got asked about it on GMA or even Maddow, it was like she pulled her punches. She didn't stand behind what she had previewed in the book.
I mean, I think for the most part she did, though. But I think that we also have a tendency, look, tone is hard when you're reading written copy. So, for instance, the Gavin Newsom comment about him hiking, I think was interpreted by the media and the chattering class online as being more critical when she was just reporting it as she experienced it. So I take her at her word that she and Gavin are fine, for example. So I sort of think that's kind of looking for a problem when there isn't really one there.
Fair. Okay. And in that one, I agree. I haven't read the whole book, but I mean, to some degree, you're going down the list of calls and you're like, he went to voicemail. Okay. That's a fact. All right. Obviously, right. No one disputes that it went, but the media, okay, fair enough. But the one on say Buttigieg, I don't get it to me because she's supposed to be this champion for LGBTQ rights. And she's saying, I don't think the country's there. I would be concerned. Again, I put myself in your shoes for a second. I don't think that goes over well with the base of the Democratic Party. What do you think?
Well, I think to me, I disagree with her. My view of it is, and if I'd been in the room to advise her on this, I would have said, whoever you think is the best person to govern with and campaign with is who you should choose, and we'll figure the rest out later. And so to me, she chose Tim Walz, and I think Tim Walz was a good nominee. I like Tim Walz as a candidate. I think the reputation he has from the right is wrong, and I think incorrect. But with Pete, I think Kamala was worried that the nation wasn't ready for a black woman president and a gay man at the same time. I don't agree with that because I think the nation is going to care a lot more about the policies that they're bringing, the character of the individuals. And that would have been a high character ticket with a lot of energy. In my opinion, the biggest mistake that the Democratic Party makes, and I actually see the Republican Party do the opposite of, we go small and we don't go big and we don't go bold. And that would have been a very bold ticket. And that plus the combination of a bold policy platform, I think could have been the difference. Because keep in mind, Trump is posting today that he won in a landslide. He really won by 180,000 votes in 3 states. So it was much closer than the Republican Party wants to make out. So I think little decisions like that, and not a little decision because the vice presidency is a big decision, I think that could have tilted the outcome if people were excited about it.
Look, I've never been a big fan of vice presidents making a big impact. I don't think it's that. I think it reinforces with your base something that you have an Achilles heel, right? So Pence really helped Trump with the evangelicals. You go back, I think Gore helped Clinton with some legislative bona fides.
Well, Vance Cheney, with the podcast bros too.
Right. I mean, so each one, but I think it just buttresses a perceived weakness more than anything. I will say this. I agree. I think that Pete Buttigieg would have made a stronger VP. I think he would have been more dynamic. He could have made a more younger appeal. A lot of these podcasts and stuff that Trump was taking on that they didn't. I think Pete Buttigieg, and the funny part about this is Tim Walz, and again, I give him credit for his service. I'm not, but the questions of the stolen valor undermined his service. Pete didn't have that problem. So you would have gotten the bonus of his service in Afghanistan without the downside of the stolen valor issues. And frankly, and also Pete's an officer. So it would have been a little bit more of a relatable thing to a lot more folks, in my opinion. I sort of am fascinated that's though, that to the question I asked you though, I would be, if I were a big constituency of the Democratic Party, i.e. the LGBTQ community, or a supporter of that part of it, to say, really, you didn't think that we were ready to fight for that? Like, that to me is an indictment on the party as much as it is the American people, because I agree with you. I don't think that people would have, like, that bar is crossed, in my opinion.
Well, I think it is an indictment of the party. And there's another line in the book where she's talking to Brian Fallon, and I forget exactly what Donald Trump said about, it was something about Kamala Harris being a black woman. And there was a recommendation that she go give a speech about being a black woman and her experience. And she actually had the common sense, I think, to go, no, I'm not going to do that. Like, that's not the right way. Don't take his bait. And I think that there are a lot of Democratic strategists who are spending way too much time on identity and not enough time on policy and personality and authenticity. And that's a mistake. And it isn't to say that, like, you ditch everything in identity politics. I think identity is important to a lot of people, but we often make the wrong mistake. So if you're in a room with a group of Democratic strategists and they're worried that because Pete Buttigieg is gay, that they can't put him on a ticket with black women, I think that's a mistake. And I think they would have made a very powerful ticket and could have won. I do want to defend Tim Walz for a second, because the stolen valor stuff is largely BS, right-wing stuff, in my opinion. And I think they took
Tell me, but which specific piece of it do you?
Well, I don't have everything, but I know it was when he chose to retire, the timing of that was a big piece of it.
No. It wasn't the timing. It was that he used a title that he hadn't earned. You don't retire. So, for example, when you retire in grade in the military, you need 3 years, or you retire at the rank below you. So when he was walking around saying he was a command sergeant major, that's just not true. So he used a rank that he wasn't entitled to.
So my understanding of that is that that's not what happened, but it was a year ago, so I don't have the full recollection. I'll grant that you're better up on it than I am right now. My point is, like, with Pete, the right-wing media machine would have found something to go after Pete.
Oh, sure.
We're really good at that. I give a lot of credit to the right because they're always able to find something and churn it out.
But also, I mean, look, here's the deal. I mean, in the case of Walz, he lied about awards that he had received. He lied about his rank. Those are big deals. And I think that the difference is that's it's not debatable. He's walked those things back. He's taken them off.
Can I make this point, though? Because they're doing this with Wes Moore right now, because they view Wes Moore as a threat. And what they found was a clerical error relative to an award that he should have gotten. No, and then they reissued the award to him, Sean.
No, they did not.
Yes,
it is not. He does not have a Bronze Star. That is not true. So when he applied for the White House Fellowship, he says that a commanding officer told him that the award would be approved, so he should put it down that he was a recipient of the Bronze Star. He had not gotten it. He still, to this day, does not have a Bronze Star. And he has walked it back. Wes Moore has actually apologized for this and said, I should have never said that. A commanding officer told me to do this. Now, again, I have always been clear that I don't try to inject my military service, but I've been in 26 years. No one ever tells you to say that you got an award that you don't have in your service record. In fact, when you don't have it reflected in your service record, you do backflicks to make sure that it's reflected properly in it. So respectfully, I will tell you, he has actually apologized to this. He claimed on a White House Fellowship that he was a Bronze Star recipient because he said someone told him that he was going to get the award and he might as well do it because it was pro forma at that point. To this day, he does not have a Bronze Star, and he has come out and said that I was a mistake doing it.
Well, I think we're not going to get to a place of agreement, but I will end it by saying thank you for your service, because I want to make sure.
But again, this isn't disagreement. Wes Moore is on record in the last month coming out and saying I should have never said that.
Right. And look, he said that, but I also think it's more a clerical error than it is, and it becomes a bigger indictment of it. And my thing is, maybe he said the wrong thing when he was younger. Maybe somebody told him that he should have been, but we're not talking about policy or the issues right now. And that's what bothers me. And so it would have been like, if Wes Moore's on the ticket, it becomes that. If Pete Buttigieg is on the ticket, it becomes that. So Democrats have to be tough enough to be able to deal with whatever little thing. And I'm not saying, like, look, stolen valor is a real thing. It happens to a lot of people in this country and it's wrong. I don't think that that's what happened with Tim Walz, and I don't think that's what happened with Wes Moore. And I just disagree with the assertion of that. But they're going to find something. And that's why I think Democrats need to be tougher to not get so afraid of, oh, Pete's gay. How's the American people going to react to that? I think that's a mistake. So that's just all the point that I'm trying to make.
And look, let's just agree to disagree on that for right now. I agree with you, though, that at some point press through. Right. One of the things that Trump's done so great, I love the line. You remember back when he was debating Hillary Clinton and they said, you took all these tax loopholes. And he said, I did. You're absolutely right. And it was, to me, as a strategist, I was like, holy smokes, it's the first time I've seen somebody just own it and say, screw you. Of course I have. It was like when they asked Colonel Nathan R. Jessup, did you order the code red? And he said, you're damn right I did.
Well, except he went to prison in the end. But
that's not the point. Tactically speaking, I gave Trump a lot of credit at the time because I had never seen a candidate ever say, of course I took the tax loopholes. I've used them all because and that's the system. And he used it to his advantage. And so I agree with you. If Democrats going forward, if they're smart, they'll take your advice and say, power through, bro. Don't just sit back like a wilting flower and go, oh, I'm sorry.
Well, and sometimes lean in too, because that's something that Trump is really good at. And I think one of the core value propositions that Democrats don't understand about Trump is that he's kind of like when you watch a TV show and everybody knows they're on a TV show, but they're not saying it, but one person. He's kind of like Deadpool in that he will pierce the third wall of what you can't say or you can't do in American politics and then indict the system. And a lot of people go, democracy isn't working for me. This economic system isn't working for me. These institutions aren't working for me. So they like that and are drawn to it. Now, I would argue he does that and then finds the problems that people care about. And he's terrible at solving them. And I think the last 9 months have been pretty emblematic of that. But he says the thing that a lot of politicians don't, and that makes him popular. And then he leans into the skid when things are going bad in a way that makes people go, you know what? I think they're all corrupt. At least he's honest about it. And that is, I don't like it. Like, obviously, I'm not a fan of the president, but I can kind of respect what he's doing. And I think there are lessons to learn from it because Democrats are so afraid of their shadow and always trying to get everything right and never offend anybody and always say the right thing. We got to get beyond that if we're ever going to win again.
If you're Joe Biden or his team, do you think they're going to lash out at her on this book and say, we're going to set the record straight? Or, by the way, President Biden has a book coming out. He's going to talk about, you know, how you ran your staff or any of the other gossip that surrounds her?
I don't know. I know that Biden's team has been leaking on the vice president for years now. And Kamala's been pretty honest about that. So there is some bad blood that exists out there that I think is just obvious based on the way that they talk about each other. But I don't know what he's going to do. And we'll find out. But again, I'll go back to what I said in my very first answer, which is I care more about if the Democratic Party is having real healthy conversations in public and private, because we have been way too afraid of Politico writing a Dems in disarray story and then never talking about what we're doing and whether or not it's right. And I'm really tired of that. And I would rather have this in the minority when we're trying to fix stuff, when everything is messy. And then what I think is going to be a problem on the Republican side, which is that the GOP is a party of one man right now. You can't say anything about Donald Trump that's negative, or you get a lot of hate in his party. And all the Republican candidates that are going to run for president in a year and a half are going to be chasing his endorsement. And the Democratic candidates are going to be trying to define a vision for the future of the country, which is why we need a big, messy, ideologically diverse primary. And I'm excited for it. That's what I want, because the last time we did that, we nominated Barack Obama, who I would argue is the best political talent, at least of my lifetime.
You know, it's funny. We agree on two other things already. One, I get so sick of the Politico process stories of this in disarray. Yeah, okay. And two is I agree. Party out of power needs to have that family fight. You need to say, what do we stand for? What are we willing to fight for? And disagree and mix it up. Because if you don't do it, it's going to come out at some point. Have it while you're in the minority. Mix it up. Fight for it. Get over with it. And then come out and say, all right, now we're focused. Yeah. I said this morning, and I want to get your take on it. When Dole ran in 96 after the election, he went on, I think it was like Letterman. And everyone said, where's that Bob Dole? He seemed likable, kind of funny. Romney had this documentary come out after the 2012 election. People were like, wow, where's that Mitt Romney? We never saw it. When I saw Kamala Harris or clips of her this morning on Good Morning America and on Rachel Maddow, I didn't go, wow, she feels free and liberated. I actually went, wow, I can see why people are probably going, okay, she doesn't look comfortable still. She doesn't look authentic. And I feel like this morning wasn't an opportunity for her to be free and to talk. She looks like the same candidate that she was in November of last year.
So I talk a lot about this as like candidate alignment to the moment. And I think that Kamala on certain levels is not aligned as well to the media moment as she could have been. And I don't know if that's a lack of experience doing it. And the truth is, like, we'll talk about Rogan, right? Rogan's been written to death that she should have gone on Rogan. I think everybody agrees with that. I've become Mr. Podcast Bro on the left side, on this. But she should have done it. And now if she wasn't ready for that, because it's a harder conversation for a politician to do a 3-hour interview with somebody, then there should have been like a series of opportunities that she should have done over a 4-year period that would have gotten her ready for that. And I think more politicians need to take risks and go on these shows. Like I have my show. It's an hour-long show where we talk about the issues of the day. Part of the reason I did it was to create a space for there to be a little bit of practice for Democratic politicians to come in and have a conversation with me, who is way more friendly than Joe Rogan is or Sean Spicer is, but they should be coming on Sean Spicer's show.
I'm a friendly guy. And by the way, I went on Gavin Newsom's podcast the other day.
Yep.
Part of it is I'm a believer that we got to take the message everywhere. We got to be willing to have serious, so I'm a believer of it. But I will say this.
And Republicans do that. Republicans do that better than we do. Charlie Kirk was traveling college campuses.
Sure.
We can argue about the efficacy of it, but he was doing it.
Excellent. But that's my point. We got to go spread the gospel, baby. You got to get out there and talk about your ideas. And if you sit and talk to yourself, you're never going to advance them. Yeah. Based on your knowledge of Kamala Harris, is she does she want to be a candidate in the next presidential election? And if so, what would you rank her tier-wise?
I don't know. I don't know if she wants to run, and I think that's going to be a decision between her and Doug and her family and what she thinks is best. I think right now she's telling her side of the story after facing an unbelievable barrage of hits. Where she ranks, I mean, she's going to be one of the front runners on day one. She's going to have a massive infrastructure. She's going to be able to raise a ton of money. She has probably the most name recognition of anybody except for Gavin probably at this moment. I don't know that she wins. I think, again, it's big, messy primary. If that includes Kamala Harris, great. If it doesn't, great. I want a level playing field in 2027 and 2028, and I want to let Democratic primary voters decide. Even if they pick from a wing of the party that I don't belong to or agree with, I would much rather let the energy of the moment and the direction of the country dictate that and let voters make that decision, not consultants like me. Because to your point, people didn't get to see what I would argue is the real Kamala Harris that I got to spend time with, somebody who was funny and warm and creative and really tough, like pushes you to be better. You didn't get to see that. And I would argue some of that is the apparatus that was around her because her team did not let her do that. And she didn't get the practice to feel more comfortable in those spaces. Whereas Donald Trump, from the minute that he was born, could walk into any room and talk about anything. I would argue he's often full of, can I curse on your show, Sean? I don't want to get in trouble.
Well, then I have to do
he's full of it, yes. I would argue. Yeah, I just don't want to get you in trouble.
No, thank you.
If you watch my show, there's a lot of cursing, so I try to.
We don't have to we're children friendly here. Okay. I want to ask you one more question before I go on a separate topic. We're 7 days from a government shutdown.
Yep.
Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries demanded a meeting with Trump. I actually thought it was a mistake for Trump to initially agree to it. They canceled it today.
Yep.
If Schumer says to you, and he's asked for like $1 trillion in new spending to keep the government going starting October 1st. Okay. Instead of Republicans are asking for what they call a clean CR, a clean continuing resolution, which means current funding levels, something that Democrats have asked for every time Republicans should support when they were in charge. If you were advising Schumer right now, what should he fight for or not when it comes to keeping the government open starting October 1st?
Yeah. So I think number one thing they should absolutely be fighting because they have the leverage here. Keep in mind, Republicans control all of Washington. Donald Trump's been very clear that he has complete and total command over the federal government. I would argue has complete and total control over the legislative branch too, minus the Democrats. What they should be fighting for is anything that helps the American people. So they're fighting for these healthcare subsidies. They should be fighting to bring those back. I think it's wrong to cut them. They should be fighting to look, there's so many cuts in the Republican budget that I think could be reversed tomorrow that would be good for the American people. They cut $2 billion in community policing in the Republican budget. They should bring that back. They cut school lunches for, I think it's something like 15 million kids in this country. They should be fighting for that kind of stuff because those cuts were devastating to people all across this country. I would argue the police cuts made us less safe in this country, and then suddenly crime became an issue that Donald Trump cared about. That's what I would be fighting for. It's anything that you can show a little bit of progress on. They need Democrats to come to the table to be able to do this because
so next Tuesday, but I guess right, I get that, right? That's what they're going to say. But next Tuesday
what they should
night,
actually be fighting for. It's not just a talking point; those are things they should.
Right? No, I get it. But I'm saying next Tuesday night, when the clock strikes and the Republicans say all we want is to continue current funding levels, that's largely under our Joe Biden budget, by the way. All we're looking to do is for the next month keep the government open at the current funding levels. Chuck Schumer's going to shut it down. Who wins that fight?
This is not, first of all, this is not Joe Biden's budget. This is Donald Trump's budget. They passed their budget several months ago. So they're continuing the resolution on this for the government. They should fight. And I think the Republicans are going to have to meet them somewhere and give them something. That is ultimately what it should be. And why would you trust this version of the White House, this version of the Republican Party, when they have acted with absolute authority? They've refused to fund things that were funded. They've taken the power of the purse away, and that's moving its way through the judiciary. So Democrats, for once, have leverage in this moment at a time when Donald Trump continues to assert his power and authority while his approval rating continues to fall. Democrats need to be seen fighting here, and they need to actually fight and deliver for the American people. And if I'm Chuck Schumer, if I'm Hakeem Jeffries, I want to send my members home to go tell their constituents that they fought to get school lunches back, that they fought to reverse the cuts to Medicaid, that they fought to reverse the cuts to community policing. That's what they should be doing.
All right. Mike, I appreciate you joining us, giving us your perspective on this important day of Kamala's big book launch. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Sean. Appreciate it.
You bet. All right, guys, thanks for joining us. We have a great show planned for you tomorrow with Harmeet Dillon. Go to SeanSpicer.com to get my newsletter. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.